We are about a minute after the hour, and so I'm going to go ahead and get us started. We've got a lot to cover today. Welcome to our Learning Curve series. My name is Peter Wagner. I'm the Director of Marketing here at AcctTwo. This is a session we have once every month where we cover Intacct best practices for churches and other faith-based organizations. Today's session focuses on measuring performance and trends in Intacct, in particular using Intacct's statistical accounts and statistical journals. So I will do a quick introduction of our presenters today. Tammy Bunting is our Director for Not-for-Profit Services at AcctTwo. She's also the CFO of Preston Trail Community Church in the Dallas area. We've also got Glenn Strack presenting today. Glenn is a Professional Services Manager at AcctTwo. And so I will get us going quickly. We have a pretty packed agenda. First off, thank you so much for joining us. And many thanks to our presenters for being here and putting together this great content that they're going to share with us. Let me get some housekeeping items out of the way. You can type in any questions you have in the question box on the GoToWebinar panel on the right of your screen. We will try to get them all answered during the session. For any questions that we don't have time to answer, we'll make sure to follow up with you afterwards. You will also all receive copies of both the recording of this webinar along with the presentation slide deck. So for those of you who are not familiar with AcctTwo, we are an Intacct partner and value-added reseller of Intacct. We were named Intacct's Overall Partner of the Year for 2014. We also provide finance and accounting outsourcing to companies and churches where we take on all or some of an organization's finance function. And we use Intacct as the platform for those services. So that's it for me. Without further ado, I'll hand it over to Tammy Bunting. Tammy?
Thanks, Peter. Thank you, everyone, for coming today. I think we have some really good stuff to show you to maybe take you from where you are today to where you want to be in regards to your reporting. Our objectives, let's just go over our objectives of what we want to cover in our session today. First of all, we're going to show you how to create a statistical account and a statistical journal. Then we're going to show you how to create a recurring journal, which we use for a week count if you're comparing things from a Sunday versus Sunday. We're going to make entries to statistical accounts, and then we're going to show you how you create those financial reports using those statistical accounts. And we're also going to use some computation in the statistical reports so you can see how this all plays out. So just a little bit about statistical accounts. Statistical accounts are used, and everyone should know this probably, are used to track non-financial data such as attendance, baptism, missions, groups, your small groups, volunteers, people serving in other areas. So anything that you can think of that is presented to a pastoral team or anyone that they're measuring metrics. Statistic accounts allow you to analyze the data in financial reports and create computations so that the financial data actually comes alive for those that are in ministry. Okay, so the first thing, and I'm going to go through a few PowerPoint slides, but don't be afraid. We're going to pass it over to Glenn, and he's going to be in a live system, and he's literally going to show you and walk you through. So at any point in time, once we pass it over to Glenn, if you want him to show it again or you have questions, raise your hand, and Peter will interrupt us, and we can make sure we get your questions answered. So the very first thing we're going to do is add a statistical account. And for our example of what we're going to show you, we're going to create a week count. That's going to be our statistical account. And to access this screen, Glenn's going to take you into the General Ledger menu, and you choose Statistical Accounts. Then you click Add, and you add your new account, or you can edit an existing account. The best practice when adding a statistical account, you should assign a completely different account range so that the statistical accounts are not inadvertently grouped with GL accounts. Statistical accounts can be alphabetical, so they can have a completely different format. Statistical accounts can also be consolidated, just like GL accounts if you have any kind of consolidated structure. A good way to see if your account groups are mapped correctly is to view the account group hierarchy. And you get that through the General Ledger drop-down account groups hierarchy. So the first thing you do is you enter your account number. You enter account title. Ours will be Sunday Count. And it can be the report type, which is for the period or cumulative balance. For the period is a report, the net change for the period, similar to how an income and expense accounts are reported. Cumulative balance reports the balance of the account for the period, similar to how the balance sheet accounts are reported. And Glenn will go through that. I wanted to note with you as well, for the categories, there's some pre-set categories inside of Intacct. I think Glenn was saying there's might be days or months or something like that. We just pick any. We have not seen a use for the category, so that's not something that we're using, but you could. And then the dimension settings, you can require that, or it can be optional. And you'll see how we are actually utilizing that in our example. We also, what we're going to do is we're going to show you that for the example, with Preston Trail, I've literally set up specific statistical journals that I can identify what they are, so that when I want to go back in and potentially do a continual journal entry, I don't have to dig through any of the, just statistical journals. I'm literally going to categorize them based on the type of journal that they are, and Glenn's going to show you that as well. Again, with the recurring count, Glenn's going to show you this, and this is really important for those of us that manage on a week-to-week basis. For example, the statistical account recurring is exactly like a regular journal that recurs. So you set it up and then you forget it. So it's going to recur and do what you need it to do. So it's used when you've got a certain number of Sundays that you're using to create your metrics, such as an average attendance for a specific period of time. That's when you would use this recurring for the week count, which again, Glenn is going to show you. We're going to literally put in a journal entry. It's just like a statistical journal mirrors a regular journal, but we're going to show you how the increase-decrease concept is similar to your debits and credits based on whether it's for the period or cumulative, but whether you're using it like a balance sheet or like an income and expense. So we'll go over that as well. At the end of the day, what we want to show you is a report that literally gives you, in this sense, the worship attendance for that particular week, the average giving per attendee, what the giving was for that week, and then here we have a grouping called attendance family, where we have elementary, preschool students. And what Glenn's going to do in showing you how to create more for this report, we're literally going to add another attendance group called groups, which is our small groups. So we're going to walk through that with you today. So Glenn, I'm going to pass it over to you and let you do that before I go any further.
Perfect. Let me know when you see my screen.
Okay. I see it.
Perfect. Good afternoon, everyone. Glenn Strack. And let's start talking about building some statistical information inside of this Intacct instance. So first of all, let's start by creating a statistical account. So the way we do that is you would go to General Ledger, and we skip over accounts and go to statistical accounts, which brings us to the screen right here. Now, as is the case with so many things in Intacct, I could just hit plus and create a new one from scratch, but I typically like to edit an existing one or view an existing one and just edit it or just duplicate it, so a lot of the data is already there. So I've got this Sunday count here. I'm going to click duplicate. The number I want to use for this account is 9958. And I'm going to call this one Sunday count group. So we're using this for small group attendance. Now, since this is the attendance for the small group, we're going to treat it like a P&L account and say for the period. If we were actually counting the number of small groups that belong to our church, then I would use a cumulative balance and find out that balance, the number of small groups at any point in time. But in this case, we're doing attendance, so I want to look at it for a period of time. There's only a couple different categories in Intacct. Typically, we're not using that for statistical accounts. And then we have the option of having requirements for this account, just as we would for P&L accounts. In this case, we're requiring ministry. And for a lot of churches that have numerous locations, we would want to require location because you're doing that in attendance by location, so you'd want your week count or your Sunday count by location also. So I am going to hit save, and we, just like that, have our new Sunday count for groups. The next step I want to do is, as Tammy mentioned, is I want to create a journal. So we've created the statistical account, and we have statistical journal entries, so I want to create a new journal first. I'm going to go to General Ledger, open Setup, statistical journals, which are separate from the financial journals, and click that, and I'm going to take a family attendance journal. I'm going to edit that, duplicate it, and this one I'm going to call the ID, or the symbol will be GAJ for small group attendance journal. We'll change this to group attendance journal and hit save. So we've created a statistical account, a statistical journal. Now I'd like to take that week statistical, the week count for groups, and I would like to create a recurring Sunday count for that. So every Sunday, one is added to it. So anytime I run the report, whether I'm running for a month, a year, a 5-year period, I will know the number of Sundays that have occurred during that time period. And as Ken said, I can use that and say, give me the average attendance for this time period, or the average giving for that time period, just through a simple calculation. So I'm going to come down here. Once again, there's recurring journal entries for financial chart accounts, and then there is recurring statistical journal entries. So I'm going to the recurring statistical journal entries. You see we have some in here already. I'm going to edit this top one, and I'm going to hit duplicate on it. And I'm going to just go ahead and change this date, and I'm going to go back to January of 2014. Now, it's very important, if you want your count to increment on a Sunday, that you choose Sunday as your first date. And I never want this to end. I want the post based on weeks. I mean, obviously you could do it every day or every month, etc. But I'm keeping track of my weeks. I'm going to increment it one for every Sunday. I'm going to verify that I have this on a Sunday, and I do. We are going to send this at the bunting at AcctTwo.com. So this way, if for some reason this transaction, this posted did not go through, Tammy will receive an email. From down here, we want to put this in our new journal, which is the group attendance journal. We're going to call it week count for groups. We're going to choose a statistical account we created. We're going to say increase it. So in statistical journal entries, there's not a debit and a credit. It's an increase or a decrease. So every week, we want to increase this by 1. Our ministry in this case will be the group ministry. And the location, Frisco, and week count for if for our small groups. So I'm going to look this over at the date, repeating every week, never ending, email, proper journal, proper ministry, proper statistical account, increase it by 1, and I'm going to hit save. Now I do want to point this out because I've done this before. If I'm editing an existing one, and I leave this date the same, and let's say I want to go in and change this description, well, if I hit save again, it's going to repost everything back to July 6, 2014. So you would want to change that date to the current date before you save it. So we now have this week count for groups. The last posted has not yet changed, but it will in a few minutes. It'll start posting those, and soon there'll be about 50 of them in here. All right. Next step, so that's our recurrent statistical journal, and we'll come back and look at that in just a moment. What I'd like to do is import some attendance data and then add it to our financial report. So we have the scorecard right here. I think this is the one we're going to add it to, year over year. And if I was to do a preview of this report, we have attendance family in groups, elementary, preschool students. We want to add a grouping for attendance small groups underneath. So what we're going to do is we're going to come back here. Let's take this one. I'm going to refresh this and see if these are posted yet. Now there's 68 of those in there. So if we were to quickly go to statistical journal entry and go to the group attendance, oops, yeah, I think I put that in here, and you see all the week count for groups. But now, I'm going to hit done in there. Now I want to import some actual small group attendance data. So I'll go to General Ledger and Statistical Journal Entry, which brings me here. I have created an import file. We can look at that real quick if you want. And it's very simple. It's a lot like a financial import file. But it's a CSV file. It's got the header information. It's here to the left of the line number. And then the line number is used to let the system know when to start a new journal entry. And every time you start a new journal entry, you have a new header. Well, in this case, we're only putting one line in per date, so it's all ones. And our attendance account is 9950, but we're using the department ID for groups, and then we put a memo in, and then we put our increased attendance for the group ministry for the attendance account. So in this case, we're using this attendance account for all the ministry. We just change what the department or ministry ID is. That being said, I'm going to go ahead and minimize that. Let's come back over to Intacct. I'm going to click Import Transaction. And we will hit Browse. Click, Import, and if I did everything right, I will have successfully imported a statistical journal. So that was simple enough. Now, statistical journal entries operate very much like the financial one. So I could come over here now and I could come to statistical journal entries with this, brings back where we were, with view transactions, and here's the latest ones that we just imported. They're sorted by the number, but I can also sort it by date. Now with all that being done, so we have the data in, we have a week count in, I'm going to switch back over to the report.
So before we go and add that, Glenn, let's just
Yes.
flip over to the PowerPoint and just let's recap and
Perfect.
talk about using those statisticals in a report. And you're going to get it back real quick, so don't go too far.
All right.
If you want to pass the baton to me real quick.
Yes, let me do that. Change presenter. There you go.
Okay. All right. So one of the things that Glenn taught me in understanding how these work is that there's two levels that he recommends at this point with what we've learned so far using the statistics, is using the computation on the columns. So when we're using the computation on the columns, those are the kinds of things that you would get an average gift per attendee. Right, Glenn? Because that's a computation. Correct?
That is, yes. If you're doing it on the column and instead of the rows, and we'll show that in a moment, then you do there's a tab on the report wizard for computations on columns.
Right. And then versus account groups, which is used for a calculation. For example, just is that where you come up with the percentage of a variance year over year? Is that where you use the account group calculation?
No, it's more of the case where if you want to bring in the system, while I'm actually doing year-over-year calculation, but if you want to do average giving for the year, and you want to pull in that statistical week count, you can use the computation on the columns to pull in the account group for the week and divide another column by that week count to get your average attendance per week.
Okay, so when you show us that, I really want you to show the difference between how you use the computation in the columns and the account group calculation, because that's one of the things that is harder for me to grasp when I'm trying to think about how do I put these in the report, which way do I go depending on the scenario or the results that I want to show. And so what we're going to show you, we literally have reports that are built that show both the computation and the account group usage, and we're going to show averages, plus we're going to show year over year and an actual to budget. So those are the things we want to make sure we show you that are important values as we look at our reports. So let me just click on this. So the report we're going to show you is in the year-to-date average. We've got a column that literally is saying, here's our worship attendance week over week over week, but here's our average worship attendance year-to-date and our average giving per week. Those are important metrics that we use. Again, there's also the metric that says, what did we expect? Where did we expect to be based on our budget? And are we over under compared to that? So Glenn's going to show how do you build the report in order to get that information. And he's going to go in through, and the reason I'm showing you these is because you're going to get these as examples of how to do what Glenn did. So he's going to define the computation. He's going to add a computation column, and it's going to be the average year-to-date example that you're using. And he's also going to give you the average giving per attendee, which is that's where that computation, the account group comes in, right? Or am I still wrong on that? The average giving per attendee. It is the account group, right?
That is correct, because that's on the row.
Okay. Oh, that's exactly right. So one is based on the rows, and one is based on the columns. Gotcha. So then here we've got some more information on utilizing the account groups. And then we're just going to show you the percentage increase with a percentage in the column. So Glenn, what we've done so far, just to recap, we've talked about creating these statistical accounts and journals. We've created a recurring journal for week count because that's going to be important as you build the report that are comparing week over week or adding or doing averages. You also put in a statistical journal so that we had data in order to populate our report that was for our small groups. So that's the one we're going to continue going down. And now you're going to create some financial reports using the statistical counts or add to the ones we already have and show us how you use those computations.
Okay, perfect. If you want to give me control
Yes, I will.
and let me know when you see my screen. See my screen?
Yes, yes, you're good.
Okay. So before I get on to this computations, I'd like to take the data I just imported and add it to the bottom of this report right here, our scorecard year over year. So if we come in here and I preview this report, as you saw on Tammy's screen print, right now we have the attendance, elementary preschool students attendance for each, and then workshop attendance up above. And now I'd like to add attendance for a group using the data that I've just imported. So what I want to do here is I need to create an account group. And if I come over here to my rows tab, I can see that I've got some attendance. I've got account groups for that. Actually, I need to make my screen just a tiny bit smaller because I'm going to cut off. Apologize. There we go. That should be better. All right. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go create an account group to add to the bottom of this report that we're seeing right here. So all my other groups are called attendance. So I'm going to create, and we had the attendance family, which had the 3 different groupings in it, or the 3 different type of family ministry, elementary, preschool, and student. Well, now I'm going to take one of those, and I'm going to duplicate it and create one for small groups. So let's just change the elementary. And I'm going to hit duplicate on that. Copy, hit duplicate. Now I'm going to say attendance groups. And that'll change my display and report, total. We're using statistical accounts to pull this in. Well, this account hasn't changed because we're using the same account on our imports, but if it's for worship, we use the worship ministry. If it's for family, we use the family ministry. In this case, for the group, we use the group ministry. So when I run the report, it's just only going to pull in the data that I request. In this case, I'm going to request it pulling in kids. I'm going to request it pulls in the groups ministry, which is what we just imported a few minutes ago. So I created this group, attendance for groups, statistical account, the account, and then I took the account group and I said only show me ministry group for small group. And I'm going to hit save on that. And then, or did I already create this?
Glenn, can I ask a question?
Yes, of course, please.
So a question just came through. Someone asked, I don't have the attendance account group. Do I have to add it myself?
Yes. So it doesn't exist because originally when you start Intacct, there is no statistical account. So you create the account, you create the weeks if you need them, you create the account groups that will pull in the statistical journal entries. So just like financial journal entries, you can create account groups based on an account, a group of accounts, a category, calculations. So the answer to that is yes. You'll have to create the account group to pull in the statistical account.
Great, thank you.
You're very welcome. So in this case, I'd already created this attendance. I just want to attendance groups and just show you that's just the same exact one. Cancel on that. And I'm going to do this one. All right, so now I'm going to go to the financial report and pull in this attendance group. So here's my report. We have the other attendance for family groupings. And we're going to select account groups. And typically, when I create this sheet, select account group, since it was already created before, sometimes I have to go to a different tab and come back, so it'll pull it in. report. I want it to show at the bottom. I'm going to hit OK. It's going to show up on my report tab. I'm going to scroll down. I'm going to change this to summary from details because I don't need to see the account number here in the subtotal. I just need to see the summary total. And I'm going to hit preview on that. And if all went well, it will show up at the bottom of this report. And there it is. So you have your attendance family, and now we have our attendance group with, this is the current year weeks, the total for the last 4 weeks, and then the prior year weeks for the total for the last 4 weeks. Well, this is a year-to-date total here. And then we have a period difference and a variance year over year. Okay. So now, to get back to the next slide that we're kind of talking about in the PowerPoint, is we want, I'm going to switch reports. So I'm going to hit Save and Done on this report. And we're going to switch over to the scorecard actual versus budget report. I'm going to edit this report. And we're going to do a preview on it so we can see what Tim was showing us on the PowerPoint. So on this report, we have a little different look. And you see we have the average year-to-date number come down here, and we have the average given per attendee come across on the row. So Tammy's discussion dealt with how to create the column calculation versus how to create this row calculation. So for a column calculation, this average year-to-date is taking whatever the amount is in the row. In this case, is worship attendance down here, different types of giving, and it's divided by the 39 weeks. So let me show you how we did that. I come over here and I come over to the column tab. And wait for that to come up, and then I scroll over. Yeah.
And can I ask a question? So
Of course.
again, for the simple-minded like myself, you make this look so easy, by the way, and when I go to do it, it just doesn't seem so easy. So I just want everyone else out there that tries this at home, if you have trouble, give Glenn a call because he does make it look easy, and it may not be so. So my question to you again is, columns. Is columns the only, rows I never use a computation? Is that a true statement? I only use my computation in a column.
So by computation, you're saying the computation tab. Yes. The purpose of the computation tab is to create calculations that you can use in the column. In fact, when you click into the computation tab, it says create column computations.
Okay. So in row, you're creating your rows just so you can put your groupings in there, and then you create your columns so that you can do a computation, but you never use a row versus the computation? Like there wouldn't be a row computation?
Well, we create computation for rows, but we primarily do that inside of account groups. You never use this computation tab for a row calculation.
That's what I needed to hear. Again, yes, because that confuses me. Because you say, yes, I do a computation in the row, but then I get confused because I start hitting that computation thing. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and what I should say is I do calculations on the rows. So, all right. So the way to do, yeah. So now we're at this. So if I come back over here, this row right here, the average year-to-date, is calculated by column number 9 in the report wizard column tab. And it's a computation on 8. So let's go back to the computation. Let's see what's happening. So on the computation tab, I can, and I'm going to edit this computation, but as you can see, what I'm doing is for different rows, I'm putting in some different calculations just depending what week count I want to use. So on this first line, I said, let's variable is going to be an account. So you can
sounds like we've lost Glenn. Tammy, can you hear me? So it sounds like you guys can hear me, but I'm not sure that Tammy or Glenn can.
I'm here.
You're there? I think we may
What
have lost
happened?
Glenn, unfortunately.
Yeah, I did too. The audio went out.
Yeah, it broke up,
So
but
yeah.
Linda's messaged me that the attendees can still hear us, Tammy. So
Okay, okay, great. I will text Glenn. Maybe he knows because he stopped moving.
okay. Maybe he can dial back in.
Yeah, it looks like he stopped, so I can type a message just in case. Glenn, call back. I lost too. We've got storms here in Dallas. I don't know if that's affecting us.
Could be. We'll give Glenn a moment or two to try to get back on.
I think we saw a question come in, Peter, asking us to go through those account groups again. Did you see that? So can you see let me know what the question exactly was? Because we'll make sure as soon as he's done putting this on the report, we'll have him backtrack and do that again. You wanted to see what that request was?
Yeah, it was. So the question whether or not having an attendance account group was something that that was automatically set up, and no, we've learned that it needs to be added. And so the question was, could Glenn show us an example of how to do that, how to add an account? I think he was duplicating accounts that he had and then editing them.
Okay.
So maybe he could just show us, from scratch, if you have nothing in place, what does that look like?
Sure, we can absolutely do that. Okay, I've made note of that. Let's see.
And Glenn, if you can hear me, I've requested to send you an audio pin. Right now it looks like I can't unmute you if you are there and you can hear me until you've entered that pin.
Well, I certainly hope he comes back because I can't show y'all this. We'd be in big trouble. I can facilitate.
Well, maybe the attendees can also take this opportunity if you have any other questions. And again, if we're unable to get Glenn back on, we're still going to make sure to follow up with you with any questions that you have. And as Tammy recommended, you can always contact Glenn for direct help as well. But if there's any questions that you have so far that you haven't asked and haven't typed in to the panel, go ahead and type them in, and we'll certainly keep track of all of them.
It's just strange that he's not even responding via,
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
There you are.
Hi, Glenn.
I'm not sure what happened. I apologize. Where
were you? Where were you at? Okay, you ready to continue on?
I absolutely am. That was very strange.
Okay.
So apologize for that. All right. So here we are in the create computation, and when we're in here, we decide what account group that we want. So it could be an account, could be a constant, like a number, like number 1 or 0, and to create a 0 value column. But in this case, we chose an account group, and the account group that we chose is attendance weeks and years, because that's what we're using for the worship attendance and also for the operational giving, which are both in the worship ministry. And so we're going to say whatever column we choose, we want to divide it by the attendance count. So I've already hit save, but we'll hit save again on that. So we've created this computation, slightly different depending on the row, In this case, it's a week count based on the benevolence ministry. In this case, it's a week count based on the One More Life ministry. So then we go to the Columns tab, and we scroll over to column 9, and we choose. So I'm going to open up that column, and one of the options is computation on an actual. So you can do a computation on a budget number 2. In this case, we're saying a computation on an actual value, and we want to choose computation 1. So we could, on the computation tab, you can create numerous computations. Just like you can create numerous columns, I could add a computation right and have different computations here, and often I do. So going back to the column tab, and we're going to scroll over. And so we're saying computation 1, and we're going to do that computation on row number 8. So where this doesn't work is if you have a year-to-date and you expand by the year-to-date, and you say computation on a certain column, well, when the next month comes, it's going to confuse that, and it may end up doing the computation in the wrong column. But if you have a set number of columns in your report, as we do here, you say, choose my computation on row 8. In other words, take whatever value is in row 8 and divide it by the week count. And I'm saying do it for the current year-to-date, and the rest is just typical. You know, we have a title, not expanding, etc. So based on all that now, when I preview this, just as we've already seen, we get this average year-to-date computation that's based on this actual dollars here and counts year-to-date. All right. Now let's look at the average given per attendee. So this is a different situation. When we look at our row tab, and we have average given per attendee. So in this case, we have created a computation inside of the account group. So we can look at this a couple different ways. If I come to select account group, we can see the grouping that we've created is called attendance average given per attendee. I'm going to close that. We can also come here, pick this drop-down arrow and hit view, and there's our attendance average given per attendee. And I'm going to go ahead and edit that and just show you how we created this. So in this case, we said we want our structure for this account group is a computation. In the computation, the numerator in this case is an account group. So I could have done account group, account, or a constant. Well, I said account group. An account group I wanted to use in this case was revenue, operational giving, and I want to divide that by another account group called attendance. Well, this attendance group is actually, that group is made up of the statistical account worship attendance. So in actuality, I'm taking a financial account, which is used in the account group, and dividing by a statistical account, which is used in this account group called attendance. And then it gives you the formula down below. You say how many decimal places you want to be. You determine whether you want to be a dollar, a value, or a percent. And I could restrict this if I want to. So that's how I create this computation or this calculation through the account group that gets applied to rows. And that shows up here, which shows up in the financial report. Are there any questions on that?
Glenn, the one question we had is we still have some uncertainty on how to build an account group from scratch. So we showed them how we edited. So I guess we need to walk through because, yeah, we showed the computations, the calculations, and again, this is going to be recorded. You can review it over and over again, so you can wrap your head around it. But let's go backwards and show again the very beginning stages. You set up your accounts, and then you create a group of accounts that are used in reports. So let's go backwards and show how you would make those from scratch.
Okay. So the way I'm going to show that is we have these two account groups. One's called Revenue Operational Giving, and the other one's just called Attendance. And I'm going to hit cancel on that. Let's look at each of these individually. So I'm in these account groups, and let's look at revenue. And look at all the account groups to start with the name revenue. And we have this revenue operational giving. And in this case, it is a group of account groups. And I'm going to edit that. So this is fairly straightforward in that all I'm bringing in is our operational giving account. And I'm not putting any restrictions on it here, no filters. I'm just saying, create an account group based on this one account, make it for the period. Since it's a P&L account, I want to take it over a period of time, not the ending balance. It's a credit, and as we talked about before, this normal balance does nothing but change the sign in the report. It doesn't change any calculations. It just determines whether it's going to be a positive or a negative in the report. So in this case, since we have a revenue account, we want that, and revenue accounts have a natural credit balance, and we want that to show up as a positive in the financial report, then I'm going to put this as the credit. I would change it to a debit if I wanted it to show up as a negative. So that would be the first step in creating this. Second step, cancel on that. And I'm going to go back and look at the attendance. So we have an attendance grouping that we used in the calculation. And this, so let me edit that. I can walk through this. So we gave it a name. We said how it's going to display in the report, gave it a debit balance because we want to show up as a positive. It's an increase in attendance. So once again, this is a financial, the statistical account, so it's an increase or a decrease instead of debit or credit. We want to treat it like a P&L account. So we said for the period. And we just, since we said that the structure type says statistical account, then we can put in, first of all, the system will only bring up my statistical account, and I could choose one or a range or individual accounts to put in here. As it says down here, statistical account group contain accounts with non-financial data. And in this case, I'm using this attendance account for worship, for family ministries, for small groups. So whatever I've imported in with a ministry ID. So I want to pull this out just for worship. Well, I need to say that I want to only see account 9950 where the ministry ID is equal to weekend services. So that would exclude all the small groups. That would exclude the family ministries. It only give me my worship services, or adult worship services. So that's part 2. And then part 3 of this was attendance average given per attendee. If I go back and edit this, it brings all the pieces together where I say I want a computation, and I want the revenue operating giving divided by the attendance. I've already defined in this account group that it's only worship ministry, so I don't have to redefine it or relimit it or or refilter it here. I've already done that in this grouping. And so what I do want to show you, if I was to create this from scratch, I'll show you the different structure types. If I was to add, so I could do a group of accounts, I could do individual accounts or a range of accounts. I can do group of account groups to build a hierarchy. I can do statistical accounts to bring in non-financial data. Computation, which we just saw, where I can add, subtract, multiply, divide. I could do it based on categories, which we use mostly for financial general ledger accounts, or do statistical categories. All that being said, we get this average given per attendee by taking the operational giving divided by this worship attendance, which is what we just did. This divided by the worship attendance, regardless of the week or the month to date or year to date, is still going to give me that average given per attendee. And we can do the same thing, and often do, by just saying average weekly attendance. So in that case, and it wouldn't make sense for a given week, but I could average weekly attendance and have it a month to date and get the average attendance for the month for each week period. Does that make sense, Tammy?
Yes, it's definitely a thought process that you have to work your, it's almost like you sit down and you decide, first of all, and maybe this, you can counter this, Glenn, if this is not how you would do it, but for me, I almost go to the bottom and say, what is it that I need? I need the report to have these components. In order to have these components, what do I need in the meat of it? Well, I've got to have attendance, and I need to have a calculation, and so I almost want to work my way up and then start building what I need. So then you start building your account numbers. It's not like build your account numbers, then think about how you use your account numbers. It's almost like go to the finished product or map it out in Excel, see what you need. And I know probably a lot of people already have this in Excel. And, Glenn, you can show the Excel. Just so you know, we're working on this. This is a live work in progress with Preston Trail. We're trying to rebuild what we call our scorecard. And it is in Excel, and it's been in existence since the beginning. So we're literally taking the scorecard and trying to recreate it so that it's being pulled out of Intacct instead of being managed in an Excel document. So we do have the finished product, and so then it's sitting down and brainstorming what components do I have to put together in order to have the end result with this report. So
the great thing, I'm so sorry. The great thing about this is that almost every church has this Excel spreadsheet in some form that's been around for years and years and years. And you can literally, it takes a little work to get there, but you can literally take this and put it in Intacct. And instead of putting in your weekly attendance and your weekly small groups and your weekly metrics into an Excel spreadsheet, you can import it into Intacct every week and have it updated automatically and have it on dashboards.
So I guess the great thing about it.
That have come in. Oh, go ahead, Tammy. No, it's okay. Go ahead. We may not get to all of them, unfortunately.
Okay. Just real quick, I think the great thing about it is we have a better way with the Intacct platform to be able to accomplish what we need to accomplish when we haven't had that before. So go ahead, Peter.
Well, one of them is why create an account group consisting of only one account? Do you have to do that in order to run calculations on it?
There are some options just depending on what you're trying to achieve. So, for instance, when I did this calculation right here, I didn't have to create an account group. I could have just done this calculation based on an individual account. And on the row calculation, there is a couple other ways to do this, but if I know that I'm going to be using that account in a number of calculations, sometimes it's easier for me when I put it in an account group, I can control what the heading is and what the total line says. So if I'm showing it in a report, then I may want to use that account group and just pull in that one account. You don't always have to, though.
Okay. Well, Tammy, we may not have time to get to a couple more questions, but I promise everyone on the call that I will send out, along with the recording and the slide deck, I'm going to make sure that we have sort of a Q&A document. And so we'll get, with Glenn and Tammy's help, make sure that we get all the questions answered, and I will send that out with the email that you'll probably get sometime tomorrow.
So do you want to just wrap up here? Do you switch it over to me, or do you got the presentation, Peter?
Yeah, let me go ahead and give you back control.
Can you see my screen?
There you are. I can. So there were a couple of things that I wanted to touch on. First of all, thank you so much, Glenn and Tammy, for showing us all of this great information. I'll make sure to get all the question and answers shared with everybody that's on the call today. I'd like to mention a few things before we wrap up. Tammy and Glenn covered a lot of material today. If you'd like any help incorporating what they've covered into your instance of Intacct, we can certainly help. Our value-added collaboration program that we've launched provides you with all the features of our essential support program, plus the added value of custom field and validation creation, report writing, dashboard creation, user training sessions, and best practices consultation. So with this program, you get direct access to AcctTwo consulting resources. We can build or teach you how to build new reports and dashboards. And our Intacct experts, like Glenn, can walk beside you to create solutions that will help you realize your church's mission. So this is an opportunity to get some help implementing statistical accounts and journals and other reporting and dashboards that you may need. The lower half of this slide that you're looking at has some of our pricing options. You'll get this slide deck with the information about the program as well in our follow-up email. And as always, if you have any questions, you can contact me or Tammy or email us at learningcurve@AcctTwo.com. In addition to this program, I'd like to quickly mention the AcctTwo customer referral program. We like to reward our customers and partners for referring business to us. So we're offering a $25 Amazon gift card for each and every referral you send our way. If that referral signs on with us, either to implement Intacct or take advantage of our outsourcing services or any other products we offer, we'll give you $500 on an American Express gift card that you can spend anywhere that you like. So you can see some of the places where you might find referral business on the slide here. We encourage you to take advantage of this program. Some people already have and have been rewarded for it. Some folks have been rewarded more than once for referring clients our way. And you can find more information about that program at AcctTwo.com/referral. And lastly, we'd like to hear from you. You can submit questions or suggested topics in our Learning Curve LinkedIn group. I'll include a link to that group in our follow-up email that you'll get sometime tomorrow. You can also email questions and topics to learningcurve@AcctTwo.com, our dedicated email address, and that's a place to ask questions as well. So visit us at our website, AcctTwo.com, navigate to the Learning Curve page under the About Us or the Financial Management Software sections. And lastly, this series is for you, so please give us feedback on how it can best work for you. And with that, I don't have anything else. Tammy and Glenn, thank you guys so much for taking us through all this information. And again, everybody's going to get the resources from me sometime tomorrow.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great afternoon. Thanks, Glenn. You did great.
Thank you.
Thanks, Glenn.
Okay, bye-bye.